Hello, all, and welcome to the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Coolbaugh. Today, I have me a very special returning guest, Shami Stovall. Shami, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Oh, awesome. I really appreciate any time somebody comes on the first time, let alone twice. I don't know what you were thinking the third time, but I definitely appreciate it. I counted, you're actually only one of 3 guests I've ever had on for the third time. So it's pretty cool. So,
Nice. Yeah.
yeah.
I like being in that prestigious category.
Yeah. And for different, yeah, and yet, like I think it's so cool because, you really had, I feel like I caught you at really good times too, with like really good books, that had just came out. So I'm really excited to talk today, about Words of Power. But do you mind just letting us know, maybe some people didn't watch our first 2 interviews. I don't know why. You guys should pause and then go check me and Shami's other 2 interviews out. I had a great time with them, learned a lot. So make sure you guys do that. Make sure you also check out her links in the description as well. But Shami, do you mind just giving us, just a few books or whatever you want to say about your writing journey, just in case people haven't watched those 2 or maybe haven't read any of your books yet?
All right. My name is Shami Stovall, and I write sci-fi and fantasy. I'm probably best known for my Frith Chronicles, which is I pitch as like Pokemon meets Harry Potter. Um, I've been nominated for many awards. I used to be an attorney. I used to be a history professor. I really love writing, and I think I've got like 30 books out now, so that's a lot of books. So I've got plenty of stories for anybody who likes reading.
I loved Academy Arcanus, so you guys can check my review of that book out. That's already has been out for a while. That video, absolutely love that book. So I can't wait to continue those. I think I bought like 4 at this point after that. So I can't wait to get back into those. I think out of those 30 books, actually, I'll be honest, I think I have like at least 13 to 15 of them, and I'm like trying
Oh,
to go
that's cool.
back. Well, I was just talking to Scott Sigler. He goes, we were talking about that. He's like, well, when you find somebody you like, he's like, he does the same thing, right? He'll just buy a bunch. He goes, even if I don't, read them right away, he's like, at least I help them out by buying them and trying to get, at least help them with the algorithm and stuff. And I was like, thank you, Scott. Thank you for making me feel better about being a book hoarder, particularly.
Yes, I 100% agree.
But I just want to mention, though, that you did send me such a lovely book a while back from your Kickstarter, and so people can actually check that out as well. So I actually went really in depth on just the amazing illustrations, and oh my God, what a beautiful book. My wife actually saw it the other day. I have it in I opened it, but I put it back into the box again. I'm getting one of those really cool, archaeological, glass cases, so I can actually have it open.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, in my office. So once I get that set up, I'll have to do a video. I have to send it to you. But she was like, "This is such a cool book. I can't believe she sent it to you." I was like, "It's amazing." So I can't wait. But you guys should definitely check out that video too, because I did that unboxing as well. Super cool, and I love the characters and the world you created there. So cool. But what I really want to talk about today, other than how awesome you and your books are, Time-Marked Warlock 2. I just have to tell you, my friend Dan actually won one of your contests a while back. So he got that book and he absolutely loved it. And I think he got book 2, or maybe it was he won book 2. But oh my gosh, he flew through both of them. So I just have to tell you, he wanted me to say, if I interviewed you again, he absolutely loved both of them. And I definitely agree with him. I got book 2 just sitting there waiting. But
Excellent. That makes my whole day.
I told him, I was like, I will tell her. And then when I had to reschedule the other first time, he's like, no. He's like, you have to tell her. So I promised him. So Dan, I know you're watching or listening. I told her. So yeah, super good books there. So make sure, if you guys in the audience, make sure you check out those ones as well. But what genre is Words of Power, and why did you decide you wanted to write into it?
So I would say it's obviously progression fantasy, and that's a fantasy book that focuses a lot on the power sets, gaining more power, progressively getting stronger or better at something as like a main plot point. I sometimes compare and contrast it. So like in Harry Potter, technically he learns new spells, but the spells don't ever upgrade. It's just a one-time learn. Like I used a spell, I stunned a guy. It's not like you can make the stun spell so powerful that you could stun a whole room of dudes at once, or you know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't progressively scale. It's just a tool in a toolkit. Additionally, it's not really like it's super plot relevant. Most of the plot has to do with going to school, how we're going to stop Voldemort. And again, stopping Voldemort is not necessarily through sheer power, it's through, other means. We need to find out where he's located or, something like that. You understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
In progression fantasy, a lot of the story is about how do I improve my power? How am I going to use this power, like literally raw, cool, epic fight scene power to beat the bad guy? So that's what this is. I would say that this started because I wrote a short story. So the first chapter of the book was its own short story originally. And people liked it so much that I turned it into a full-length novel. It's very much steeped in, I guess, like East Asian lore, so a lot of Japanese, Chinese, Korean style stuff that's going on. And I used to live in Japan for a little while. I studied Japanese for a bit. I was a history major. A lot of this stuff, was just a little bit easier for me. I feel like I did a good job with the world building, but maybe that's just me patting myself on the back. But the review said I did it too, so I'm just gonna stick by that. That's fine. um, it's a really fun East Asian setting, mythical. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what was going on. I feel like people who have ever seen the anime Berserk
Mm.
will probably like this. Or especially too if they like things like Inuyasha or anything that has like a universe that has demons, spirits, a magical world. Things are, dark on the very edges, but the main character is a very good person. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, so that's Words of Power.
That's super cool. Well, I remember when I first saw you a while back, right, where you put it up on, it was like on my feed, and I think you shared it in your group actually, or something, or on your author page or whatever. And I was just like, wait, what is that? I had to like go back up. I was just like, oh my, I love like Cradle. I love, like Rob J. Hayes. Yeah, his is like sci-fi level progression and stuff. Like Titan Hoppers and stuff. I love Dao Wong's first Lee, 1000 Lee, with like the first step. I actually just finished book 3, so I'm like so excited to get into Words of Power. I'm a martial artist, so that's like my thing, right? Like I've been plateaued before. I've been injured, had to come back in it. Like I don't know, I love that type of level progression because I've had to do it before in real life. So to me, it just my friend will read like the same thing, and we used to do taekwondo together and stuff. Grew up doing it together and stuff, so it's kind of cool to to be able to read something together and be like, hey, remember that time, or that stretch that we were struggling or whatever. And it's interesting to, I think, in level progression fantasy, or just level progression fantasy or sci-fi, to be able to see that type of progression in a character, I think is just really cool. Yeah, and spending so long on a martial art or writing, even, right? Like I think anybody doesn't even martial art, right? Just any task, right? Like, and then everybody, I think, whether it's music or whatever it is, right, has had those struggles and had to figure out how to overcome. So I think it's you just get to deal with some really cool themes, right? So, but when I was telling my friend who won your contest for urban fantasy, he was like, "Oh my gosh!" He's like, "This sounds so cool," because he loves the magic system that you did in both of the first 2 books that he's read. And I was talking about like Academy Arcanus, so I was trying to get him onto that, and he was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like when I sent him Words of Power, he's like, "This is going to be a really cool like book, like power wise," because he agreed with me. He's like, "She's really good at writing the power, aspect in the world." But I'm like, "Yeah," and those are the 2 spheres that we like the most. So, but I'm curious, in terms of Words of Power, like what made you want to write like level progression fantasy?
Oh, I'm a big fan of progression fantasy in general. Like that's my jam. I grew up watching Dragon Ball Z, and I would say Dragon Ball Z is like the heart of progression fantasy. You know what I'm saying? Like I know it's more sci-fi, I guess, but it's pretty fantastical. And it's like, I mean, your power level's over 9,000, and everybody gauges their power based on a number. You know what I'm saying? Like his power level's 1,000,000, and then and then you got to train and you got to get stronger so that your numbers are higher than their numbers. You know what I'm saying? So that you can beat the shit out of them. Dragon Ball Z is like quintessential progression fantasy. It is just ever escalating fights, the anime. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's what I'm here for. Like legitimately, that's just my jam. So it's really easy for me to write this kind of stuff because I feel like this is what I'm waiting for anyways. I just want cooler and cooler and cooler fight scenes. I just want the main character to get cool and strong. I like it when the main character is good because then he's just beating up a bunch of bad guys, usually with their literal monsters. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's what I want to see. So, I mean, nobody had to convince me that this was a good genre. I was already here clapping for it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
That's amazing. That's awesome. Well, I know a lot of indie authors in particular, like I was talking to people about it, they were like, oh my gosh, have you seen Words of Power? I was like, dude, I pre-ordered as soon as I had it in my calendar. And then Amazon was like, hey, don't forget, which I appreciate, right? Because sometimes I miss them in the app. But I was like, please. Yeah, so I just thought that was so funny. Like, so many people came to me like, this is your type of book. I was like, I know. Don't worry. I appreciate it, though, right? Because there's so much out there, right? And
oh, yeah.
yeah, but that's really funny. Yeah, Dragon Ball Z, I still remember my friends, like they had cable, like satellite actually TV, and we didn't like really have anything. My grandma had cable and stuff, but there was like no Cartoon Network at the time on cable, so it was like only on satellite. So I remember specifically going over there to watch Dragon Ball Z, and like we had to be done right and back at their house by a certain time, whatever it was, like 3 or whatever for us p.m. to watch it, or like after school or something like that. The summertime there were like the reruns and stuff, so we would always go over there and just like watch entire. My mom's like, what are you doing? We're like playing basketball or something. We're like, we gotta go. We're swimming. We're like, we gotta go. It's Dragon Ball Z time. So, all you youngsters out there that just get to watch it on whatever, like you guys are so lucky. We had to go both ways, to watch it. I was trying to explain to some kids about that, right? That like, with one of the finales, and we had to like put it on our calendar, not digital, right? Like we wrote it on our actual calendar, and we're like, hey, this is the premiere, and that was such a big deal. My friend had a huge like premiere party. There was probably like 13 of us guys, and his poor mother. There was so much pizza and Mountain Dew drank, at that time. But yeah, what a great show. I miss those days though, like where like Power Rangers even, right? I would say with different episodes or in between seasons, it's like you were really like ready. Now it's like, I don't know, there's not that anticipation, I think now, with TV as much, or those types of shows, which is why I like, books like this, because I feel like, you still get that with a book, kind of like how it used to feel with that nostalgia. But
well, it's a slight tangent. I don't know, because in Dragon Ball Z, there's like a 20 episode span that covers like 2 minutes of a planet exploding.
Yeah.
Okay. And I remember, sitting down on like a Saturday watching the first episode, and it's like, my God, 2 minutes till the planet explodes. Next time on Dragon Ball Z. And I'd be like, oh, God damn, I guess I got to watch it next week. And then I'd watch and it'd be like, you'd watch the whole episode, and at the end of the episode, they're like, it's 1 minute and 40 seconds until the planet explodes. And I'm like, dude, we just sat here for 20 fucking minutes watching people fight, but apparently only 20 seconds went by. And then you had to keep coming back. You know what I'm saying? Just to see this goddamn planet explode. And by the end of it, you're like, it's never going to explode. So like, we're stuck in this time freeze of a fucking exploding planet. So yeah, sometimes it was, I almost felt like they did it intentionally just to stretch out whatever was going on, just to keep you sitting there. So there were pros and cons to watching it on television.
I remember this specifically was like, that season, let's say it was 20, it was like, I remember the day was like episode 14, right? And it was like, it had to be like 30 seconds, whatever it was left. And my brother was like, I am so over this crap. And he just like threw stuff down. He's like, I'm leaving. He's like, I'm tired of this. I'm going to like, to do something else. I'm going home. I'm going to swim or something. We were just like, what? We were like astounded, but he was so tired of that every time. My buddy and I, AJ, we were just like, we were in it. We were just like, oh my gosh. Like, I don't know. It was really funny. But yeah, I agree. After like the 17th time, I was like, oh, the 17th episode or whatever. I was just like, are we there yet?
Yeah, it's over.
Really yeah. My friend, we were on here recently talking. He's like, there's a lot of what to do and what not to do in Dragon Ball Z, whether it's the old one. I was like, that's very true. That's really funny. So in terms of words of power, do you mind just telling us what generally the book is about and what readers can expect in terms of this new world?
So the first chapter, like I said, it was written as a short story. And what happens is, I guess it's a spoiler, but it's the first chapter, so I don't know if I'm spoiling too much. Um, Main character is a guy who works in a brothel. He's not like one of the courtesans or anything. He was born to one of the courtesans, and he's there to do like manual labor. So he's like at the bottom, lowest rung of society, right? And a ring warlock comes up to the brothel, and in this universe, the ring warlocks are the only people with magic. And they have these rings, and the rings connect them to like titans of darkness that provide them with this magic. Through a series of events, the main character gets the ring from this warlock, and when he puts it on, he's instructed by basically the warden of the rings that he can get magic, and his magic is determined by 6 words that he picks. So if he picks, if he says things like invisibility or immortality or stuff like that, those are the types of magic he'll get. As a caveat, if you say a word more than once, the magic you get is even better. So if you said immortality one time, maybe that just means you don't age anymore, right? But if you said immortality 3 times, maybe that means that you can't be poisoned, you can't be killed by normal means, you don't age, like your immortality is better than just what a standard immortality would be. So you've only got 6 words, and you need to use these 6 words to determine what power set you're going to have. And any words can do. And the more abstract or even nebulous the word, the more open to interpretation it is, right? So the main character has this dilemma immediately in chapter 1. What are the 6 words I'm going to pick? And he decides, the very end of the chapter, he picks the 6 words, and he picks powerful, 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 powerful. And that's it. So that's how chapter 1 ends. And then, obviously we go from there with this adventure. He meets other ring warlocks. We get to hear what their 6 words were. We get to see what their power sets are because of it. There's a lot of stuff like that where the power set itself is very interesting and builds onto that, like, well, what would you pick for your 6 words? What kind of magic would you get for that? Like that kind of fun. I really like those types of magic systems where you get to kind of think like, what would I do in this situation? Like, what are the kind of magics I would pick? I also feel like it's funny, almost video game style thing, to min-max, to pick like 6 of the exact same word, because then you get the best possible outcome in that one category, whereas everything else is zeroed out, right? Like it's very classic gamer strategy in my humble opinion. So I like that. So yeah, the story is basically a guy who didn't have any power at all now comes into a lot of power. And so he gets to be a ring warlock. There's only 26 in the entire world, basically. So he's one of these 26. All of the ring warlocks get to rule over a part of a prefecture. So now he's a ruler of a prefecture. There are demons and spirits that roam the land. There's an emperor that's supposedly more powerful than the ring warlocks. There's all sorts of like it's a fun, interesting world, and now he has to rule it, right? So, or like rule a piece of it. And then obviously it just gets more complicated from there. But yeah, I feel like that opening chapter, if you read that opening chapter and you think I don't like this, you're probably not going to enjoy the book. But if you read that opening chapter and you were like, wow, that was kind of fun and really cool, you're probably going to enjoy the whole book. You know what I'm saying? Like this is one of those books where just reading the first chapter is a litmus test to whether or not you're going to have a good time. And if it sounded even mildly interesting, again, you're probably going to have a good time, because it's just one of those style of stories where the main character is clever or does things that I feel like if you're presented with an option like path A or path B, somehow the main character always picks path C, like a path that people weren't really expecting but technically fit into the rubric. You know what I'm saying? So it's that kind of story. I feel like if you just read chapter 1, you'll totally see whether or not it was for you.
Oh, that's really cool. Well, I have to say, trying to think of how to say it without spoilers. Um, I really liked one of the characters that you did something similar with that in Time-Marked Warlock.
Okay.
They think of things that I do things in a way that I maybe wouldn't have thought of, and I think that's why I liked the book so much, because I was like, oh my gosh, like that's a really, like, you always have really cool powers or different things or magic, but like I like how you have your characters use them because they're in ways that I wouldn't necessarily think, and that's what I think I like so much about the different um oh just like the different like characters, like the in Academy Arcanus, like oh, why am I blanking on the word that you used in the book? But like the creatures and spirits and things that they bond with.
Hmm.
That was just so cool. Like a couple of the characters, I was like, oh, this would be a really neat, because I like that, because I was like, oh, what would I choose? Like if I was gonna bond with something, like what would I bond with? And I don't know, like you gave kind of a nice, I think, preview of like a menagerie almost of like what's kind of starting what's in the world. But there was just I think the cool part was like there were like where they can use some of that power with those characters, right? But like I was like, I wouldn't have thought to use those powers in that way. So I love where you kind of did that. I think really for both books, honestly, for me, and it was really cool because I wouldn't have thought to do the solve problems with those powers in that way. And I think that's what makes it really refreshing, I think, for myself, is to read someone's work where I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I wouldn't have thought of that, because to me it opens up a lot more possibilities. So you're saying that about Words of Power and his character, I'm like, I am there, because like you've done it so well. Or similarly with characters or themes like that in the past, and I felt like it worked so well, that's like really cool. My friend, I had a couple people actually that talked to me about Academy Arcanus, and then they got further than I did, but so far, but they were absolutely, everybody I've talked to, like me, is like, I love the way that you're using magic systems. Everybody talks about Sanderson. I think you do it in a better way. Just personally, I love the way that you take those things, and he'll do it pretty well. But I love how you take that and you're like, okay, here's the how the character has this power or can do this, and then how would they solve the problem in a unique way. So
Well, that's high praise. So thank you.
yeah. My friend, like, who finished Time-Marked Warlock, said the same thing. He was like, dude, like, I was like, I know. Because he was like, I had finished right before him, and I was like teasing him. I was like, oh man, I'm going to spoil it. I'm a big non-spoiler, but like, I was like, I'm going to spoil it. He's like, don't you do it. I'm like, really? I would never do that. But I'm really excited, though, to see how you do those things that I liked about two very different really genres and series, but I don't know, I think you have certain skills as an author that I really enjoy, so I'm like so excited to see how you do that here with Words of Power in the level progression fantasy genre. So that sounds really awesome and right up my alley, so I'm glad I bought the book. Cool. Well, that's amazing. I absolutely cannot wait to talk about the magic system, though, because I know you brought up somewhat, but I'm kind of curious, like, did you have any, sort of influences, whether it was, mythological from the history, or, maybe, some other, things that you've written, or other books or, TV shows or movies that you liked? Like, what kind of inspired you, for this type of magic system?
Oh, I guess my inspiration was more the rule of cool for this book.
Nice.
Yeah. The main character gets a very, what I would just consider like cool ability from his 6-word choice. And essentially what it allows him to do, this is more spoilers because now we're going beyond chapter 1, is that he gets the ability to drain life essence from creatures, and he gets to incorporate it into himself. So he basically gets to steal power sets from creatures and then add it to his own. Now, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Again, you would have to read the book to really get this, but the way he uses it to empower himself, like to become more powerful, is clever. Yeah, I really love the cleverness. That's one of my favorite things about people who get powers in general. Like you were saying that you liked how I used it, but that's like as a reader, for me, one of the things I really love is when a power is used in such a way that I hadn't thought of that yet, or they use it in such a clever way as to solve a problem much easier than, than I had originally thought that the problem was going to be. Like, man,
Yeah.
this sounds like a really awful problem, but then they solve it like fast, and I'm like, oh man, that was cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was a cool way to solve that. That's what I really love. And you only really get that through powers that are not necessarily like how strong you can punch.
Mm.
Like, don't get me wrong, having a very strong punch is very cool. I love cool fight scenes, and I have lots of fight scenes in my books. You know what I'm saying? Like, but it is occasionally when someone is like, "Oh, I have this power," and it sounds like this power, only does the one thing, like, "Oh, I can see in the dark" or something like that. You know what I'm saying? And you're like, "Okay, I guess that's a cool power." But then when they use it to their advantage, like when they're in a fight and then they intentionally make the battlefield dark, you know what I'm saying? Like that kind of thing, and you're like, "Oh, I see. Now he's going to use his ability to see in the dark to give himself an advantage in this fight." So not only can he punch really hard, but he's also changed the environment to give him the edge. I like things like that. Like, I can't stop reading that. If a book has lots of that in it, I'm here for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I want to see, so that's what I write. And Words of Power has a ton of that. The main character thinks very strategically about the creatures that he goes out and he tries to get powers from. Um, he can't necessarily have an unlimited amount of them, which is why it's really, really important, which ones he gets. And so some of his decisions I really like. Again, the story is about him now becoming a ruler of a prefecture, and other ring warlocks don't like him because he stole his ring. And so he has a lot of contention with other ring warlocks that have a lot of power. The magic in this world is like a progression magic where the more you use it, the better you train with it, the better you become. So these other ring warlocks that are a lot older are better with their magic, and obviously they have really interesting power sets because their 6 words were different than the main characters. So they don't even have like the same. It's very asymmetrical, is I guess what I'm trying to say. His power lets him do this thing where he can steal like abilities and stuff, and other people's powers allow them to do other sorts of crazy shit. So, we almost have like an X-Men style power set fight going on where you're like, oh, okay. But some of the ring warlocks did in fact pick stuff that was like, so that their kingdom was better as opposed to them.
Mm.
Like a ring warlock who had like words that were like strategy, control, like military, things like that. So then this ring warlock, maybe he personally would be very easy to kill if you ever found him, but all of the armies in his prefecture are really powerful and devastating. And so, the main character can't just fight an entire army, right? Even if you have cool magical abilities, if 100 dudes come at you, it's sometimes difficult. Now, obviously, he's getting better and better and better, and but he has to contend with these other ring warlocks. He wants to be a good ruler, just stuff like that. It's very much a progression in all sense. He progresses as he powers up his magic. He progresses as he makes his prefecture better. He progresses as he defeats other ring warlocks or, outmaneuvers them, like outplays them, that type of thing. Um, just just that kind of story. Again, I feel like if I've said anything and that sounds interesting, I feel like you're gonna have a good time. I don't want to give too many spoilers away, but that's the general gist of the book.
That's super cool. I have to know, or is it a secret? Like, what would your 6 words be?
I would probably do the same 6 words as the main character. I am also a like min-maxer. Like when I play games, I really, really want the best that I possibly can be at this role. Um, I guess like the main character, a lot of the reasoning that he uses for picking those words is a lot of the reasonings I would use.
Mm.
Um, I've got like weak noodly arms. I'm not a fighter. You were like, oh man, I'm a martial artist, and I'm like, nah, I'm like a small, 5'3" lady face, who's not particularly good at fighting, and I would need an advantage that would help me in some way. And I can't just settle for mediocre advantage. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want an advantage that's like to hide myself or something like that. Invisibility would be cool, but what am I going to do with invisibility? What else am I going to do besides that? So I would definitely want something that was uh, the equivalent of carrying a gun. You know what I'm saying? Because a gun is a great equalizer in a fight. If we got into a fist brawl, even if you were a black belt, if I have a gun, I stand a pretty decent chance of winning still. You know what I'm saying? Like you could probably still win as a black belt martial artist, don't get me wrong, you know what I'm saying? But I wouldn't be down for the count. Does that make any sense? Like if you
No,
heard
well, it's also like Harry Dresden, right? Like I
Yeah.
love where Jim Butcher's a martial artist, but and like Harry will talk about it, or Karen Murphy or whatever. But then it's like Harry just talked to. I'm like in book 13. Or I'm in changes right now, so I'm like 50% of the way through that. And it's funny he just mentioned that again. He's like he's getting more powerful with spells and stuff. He's like sometimes nothing beats a good old fashioned handgun. It's like
Yeah.
it's true, right? Like at one point, like I remember I had a professor where he was doing a self-defense seminar, and the first thing he started with is like someone pulls a gun and he ran out the door. It's like that's fair. It's like that's what I would do. So kids always ask me, what would you do? Gun or knife? I'm like, run. I'm like, what's the point? Like if they're attacking somebody, it's a little different, right? But I'm like, if they're just checking, I'm like, I'm out of there, right? So yeah, definitely get that. I'm more of a in betweener. I would be like 2 speed, 2 strength, and 2 something else. But it's funny because when you mention that, like it's like X-Men with Nightcrawler, right? Like you think like, oh, you could teleport. Oh, great. But when you actually add, I loved how they did that opening scene where he's like puffing in and out and takes on all the like Secret Service guards and stuff. Oh my, and they just used that one power so well, and I thought, oh my, that when I saw that scene, that completely changed how I thought of writing abilities or spells or whatever, because I was like, here you have teleportation, sounds great, it's convenient, but I never would have thought before then of using it like that in a fight, and I think they just did such a good job where he's just puffing all over, and one guy, he's like doom, 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 like kicking him back and forth. I'm like, how cool is that? So yeah, it's always interesting, right, to see how somebody uses or writes a power in a way that yeah, like we talked about, right, like a way that you wouldn't expect, because that was so cool to see at the theaters. It was really neat. I love when authors like yourself do that in books. Everybody's got to go read Time-Marked Warlock. Just go buy it, go read it, go listen to it, and then you come back here and you'll be like, oh, I get it now. But that's super cool. I don't know exactly what my words would be. I'll have to get back to you. Maybe I'll put them in the comment section here or something. I want to know, people, if you're watching this right at this minute and you're at this point in the interview, I want to know. Put them in the comments and then we'll share them later. What would your 6 words be? All right. Are you mid-max here, or are you going all the way? Okay. Well, that's really cool. I'm curious, just to go back, I totally forgot to ask this because I was too excited about what you were saying with like the powers and everything. I'm just curious, like in terms of world building, like were there certain things that you used from, oh, sorry, someone's calling me. I'm trying to block that. Oh, not a problem. I'm just curious for that. Ooh, I think I lost track where I was at. Oh, for that question, I'm just curious, like in terms of like history, like were there certain things that you built into the world that you had previously known, about, like whether it's Japanese, Chinese, Korean history, like anything like that you really like wanted to hit in terms of world building?
So I base this a lot on like 1700s Japan. I think that's the primary influence. Now there is a lot of Chinese and Korean influence as well, but a little bit less in terms of like where we're situated. The Japan has a very mountainous, it's a mountainous archipelago, so a lot of that has dictated how prefectures are formed, where seats of power have formed, etc. During the shogunate and other stuff like that. The way that they maintained power, because a lot of these different like shoguns had power in their own region, but in order to kind of keep it so that they weren't all fighting each other, they would like meet with the emperor in the capital. But traveling in those ages is a huge time sink, right? Like it might take you a couple months to get to the capital, and then you might be there for a month, and then it takes you a couple months to get back to your own prefecture. So for half the year, that year that you were summoned, you weren't there looking after your territory, right?
Yeah.
So then it kind of weakens you because that was an entire half year in which you weren't building military might or you weren't doing something really cool. So that was how they did a lot of this like power structure,
Interesting.
power struggle. So I used a lot of that. I used just a lot of like random details about Japan that I just know, and that's fun and interesting. You know what I'm saying? Now it's also set in a super highly fantastical world, where there was a god of darkness and light, and the god of darkness beat the god of light. And so the myth is that all of the stars, are just pieces of the light god's body that have been shattered. And this world has two suns, and those are also pieces of the light god, and they're referred to as the eye and the molar. Like those are pieces of the god itself. But because they have two suns, their summers are like extremely harsh. Like
Oh,
and it's talked about in the book and whatnot. And so they worship the darkness, quote unquote, but not like I guess in a Western sense where when you hear something like that, you're like, oh, I guess they worship demons and they're evil or something. Like,
yeah.
no, they worship like the literal darkness, like the fact that when night comes, it gets colder, like it's a reprieve from the two suns and the summer, and then the night is very mystical, and you can see all the other pieces of the light god, and it's more like nature in worship. It like that's an East Asian thing, is to worship nature or to be more at peace with nature and yourself. Again, it's a Western notion that light equals good,
Mm.
darkness equals bad, like that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
this is definitely more like natural type of setting, or like the religion is way more natural. I also use the Chinese myth. So in Chinese myth, the dragons and the phoenixes hate each other. They That's just a very common theme that goes on and on and on. So the god of darkness is a dragon. He's on the front cover of the book, and the god of light is a phoenix. So this again, I feel like if you know a lot of like East Asian myths, you'll totally see you'll totally see it all throughout this work. If that makes any sense, you'll 100% be like, "Oh, I recognize that." Like, "Whoa." But if you don't recognize it, it's not bad either. You'll still have a good time. If I'm like the light god is a phoenix, you're like, that makes sense. Like that's fun. You don't need to know any deeper cultural context to be like, oh, okay. And so that's basically, I took a lot of that type of influence. I just thought it was fun and cool.
Yeah, it totally is. That's really awesome. That's super cool. Well, I know we're wrapping up here on time, but I want to make sure, because I know, you got book two, for this on the way. So do you have any other news, updates, current projects, anything like that you can share with us?
I am currently finishing up my Academy Arcanus series. There's only one book left.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that'll be finished. And it was nominated for a Dragon Award,
Oh,
Labyrinth
yeah.
Arcanus, which is book 5.
It's amazing.
For best YA fantasy. Well, it is amazing, but the only way I can win is if people vote. And
Yeah.
it's sometimes really hard to convince people to vote, you know what I'm saying? So this is my like one moment of being like, hey, if you've read Academy Arcanist, if you like that any of my Arcanist books or Astro Academy, I feel like you need to go and you need to vote. You just got to go to the Dragon Awards website and you can go ahead and vote for Labyrinth Arcanist. You get to vote for all the categories. Like you could vote for best science fiction book, and Matt Dinniman's The Inevitable Run from Dungeon Crawler Carl is there. There's like best alternate history. There's best illustrated cover. You could vote for your best TV show and video games and all this other kind of stuff. So it's really, really cool. Fingers crossed I win. Although I saw that in my category, one of the books that I'm up against is, I think, the newest book in the Hunger Games. I think it's called like Sunrise of the Reaping or something like
Yeah,
that.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, dang. That's some stiff competition. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you really got to get out there and vote. So if people
Yeah.
get out there and vote, that'd be great.
That's awesome. Well, feel free if they give you any links or anything, or send it to me. I'll pop it in our podcast group, like crazy. I'll try and get you some votes that way. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you again. I appreciate you coming on. For the third time. Hopefully, we can get you for a fourth time, for the second book, here in this world. I'm really excited to read book one. Once I get that review, put it up for you. But everybody else knows, you can find the links, book and social in the description anywhere you're watching or listening to this podcast. But I thank you so much for coming on again. I can't wait to talk to you in the future. Other than that, you have a great rest of the day, and I'm sure I'll talk to you on social media, my friend.
Okay, have
See you
fun.
later. Bye.